Hey there, welcome to Why We Roll, a tabletop role-playing game design podcast.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre, and Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Throughout the show, Chris and Wythe hope to amplify new creative voices. We'll chat with different TTRPG designers, focusing on the world of indie games.
We take a curious approach to game design, working through a range of mechanical and narrative questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games just so powerful.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
Hey!
Oh, we're live.
What's up?
Yeah,
We're live.
That's usually your line, Wise.
That is usually, I say something after hey. Longer day than usual. So what's up? How's it going, Chris?
Going well. Doing great, yeah. I'm sorry you had a long day. I didn't have a long day, but, I'll make it long somehow for myself.
Oh, that's great. Well, game design, I think we were talking before we started taping that you're doing some game design, so that's a fun version of long.
Yeah, long, lots of work, lots of little stuff, but it's exciting. So, it drives the ADHD forward in a nice way.
Awesome. Well, we can also talk about game design that is happening or has happened recently with a couple guests, because we're doing an interview right now, and with another Chris, yet again, a cool game design Chris. Whom we met through a cool game design, Wes. So our guests are Wes Ascolese. Am I saying that correctly, Wes?
You are probably pronouncing it correctly, but it's Ascolese.
Ascolese?
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Chris Koger. Am I saying that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry, Wes.
You're totally fine.
And thank you both for being here. So this is kind of random. We just saw you were doing a game called No Nazis in Valhalla for Zine Quest, and we thought that sounds awesome. Punching Nazis, generally doing sort of weird leftist game content is something Chris Pickett and I really like. And so, of course, we wanted to have people on the show who sort of shared any version of that value. And Wes, you and I were chatting on Discord. Seemed like we're aligned, had a lot of interesting thoughts. And you said we should bring on Chris because Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, you created a new system, which is I think something we also really love discussing and wanted to talk about today. Does that pretty much summarize it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that nails it. We've worked on projects before. We keep working on stuff now. This one's kind of fun because Wes hopped in on a system I've been, cooking with the last 2 or 3 years, and, said, hey, I really want to do this game that we've also been talking about off and on for a couple of years. For probably about that long, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. So it was a great chance to, do a little something together again. The together this time is much more Wes's working this one out pretty hard, but
nice.
It's always a good time.
That's amazing. Wait, so do you all work together as Spooky Bell Games? I'm not actually super familiar with your work. Wythe has told me about No Nazis in Valhalla, which I'm here for 100%. But yeah, no. Do y'all work together as Spooky Bell? What's the story?
Spooky Bell is just like a name that when we were working on our first project together, I was like, okay, we need a name for I don't want to just put it out because we're both working on it, etc. And Chris threw up some names, and then Spooky Bell is what we landed on. And so that's just kind of what we put games out under, if no one has an issue with it. Chris and Josh, another friend of ours / co-writer, put out Hard Light Dynamic. That should be coming out soon. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, I got a stack of zines in my office right now, and a stack of cards should be here in about 2 weeks.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, so Spooky Bell at this point, it's just kind of a loose collective of, the three of us that we can use to put stuff out and publish and everything, with some further plans, down the line now as we, get our crap together.
Awesome. And I like Hard Light Dynamic. This is the Cyborg supplement, but Doomed AI.
Right. I just posted a link to it in our chat.
Nice. Yeah, I like that you mentioned acid horror. So I think, Chris and I, we like to talk a lot about game design, sort of process. How do you play test? How do you write? How do you make a product, like from conception to like getting a thing in the world, printing it? And we also like to talk about a lot about genre and sort of what constitutes a genre. So I'm really curious to kind of keep those all top of mind when we talk about historical work, which we're both really interested in when it comes to, the 800s, 900s AD, I think. Is that right, Wes?
That is correct.
And with Cyborg, I'm a sci-fi guy, so I love the idea of acid horror and doomed AI, but I have many questions about, how you brought that to life. So where should we start? What would be what's the thing y'all are most excited about, either individually or as like a team?
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
That is a very good question. Let's start with the stuff that hasn't come out yet, with No Nazis in Valhalla. So we can start with Grindcore, which is Chris's system. That I'll let him explain it. Is that cool, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So Grindcore hasn't been published in anything yet. So No Nazis in Valhalla is kind of the first, foray of its use. And then I'm actually actively right now working on the SRD and kind of the home setting of it too. But yeah, it started off as a lot of things. Sometimes if you design games, you were like, I really am obsessed with this idea, especially if you have ADHD and you hyperfixate on a couple of things, Yeah, Chris. Yeah. It's just like, I must do something to use this idea. And so it's kind of evolved over time. But the kind of three key components of it are, it's a 3d6 system with a range of success, similar to Powered by the Apocalypse and some other kind of games, but with a different curve. But using those 3 dice, you get a couple of global mechanics. One of them is there's a stamina system built in that powers all of your abilities, but also is kind of like your physical stamina. So if you get in a fight and you're just like slugging it out, it's kind of ticking that, timer down. If anyone's, been in a fight, done combat, any kind of sport, like a lot of times the person standing up at the end is the person who had the best set of lungs if they didn't get a good hit in, it's kind of waiting that out. The other idea is this global mechanic in Grindcore called Threat, which is literally a timer that everybody can see that ticks up. And so when you were, the 3 roles are kind of like surge, grind, and botch. Botch is you missed. The grind is where it lives. That's why it's called Grindcore. That's kind of your mixed success, so you get what you want, but you're adding threat to this meter. And as the meter ticks up in the base system, when it hits 13, basically, it's a cue for the DM to escalate the situation if they're still in it. So it's this mechanical nod, to add some danger to, what's going on, add a big complication narratively. And what we found is it's fun because everybody can see it. So, at the table, the players are looking at it, the GM's looking at it. Okay, guys, if something else, what I mean? Little goes wrong, then something big is going to go wrong.
But there's like a real looming sense of danger that you get.
It's up. So you really want that tension, to be built up. And then, from there, that's kind of like the biggest parts. There's abilities, all the other stuff that's fun. But mixing that kind of like all player facing roles, rolling, to success with complications kind of idea that's like a modern RPG. But a lot of the rest of the aesthetics and everything have more of like an OSR kind of, feel and vibe to them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, even the concept of a threat clock feels very OSR to me. Like that's something that I use whenever I'm running OSR games. And I think, I approach it more like an old school approach where it's like, I don't have a perfect information system where I'm letting my players know, but I'll give them like diegetic hints and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do actually like just having it being out on the table. So there's like, that tension is rising. There's, a vibe that goes with the mechanic that feels really imminent.
Yeah, and that was something that's fun, because it didn't start that way necessarily with the here's this big thing that everyone can see. It was more of a DM cue.
Right.
And just play testing and talking to Wes and talking to Josh and different people, it just kind of evolved into that. And then we realized like, oh, this is like a nice tool, you know what I mean? That like very open information, you know, and like you say, you do a lot of other, you know, really kind of, you know, setting it out, you know, here's the danger that might be there.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, when the clock ticks, then, you know, okay, this is going to happen now.
Yeah, it's kind of like you know, even physicalizing like Dread, but like with, you know, the Forge in the Dark system having clocks that are sort of drawn in, where everyone is kind of looking at that, and it provides that really nice link between everyone's imagined theater of the mind, like stakes raised narrative moment, and a mechanical thing, or for you a GMing thing, like okay, that's when so and so shows up in the scene, and they don't necessarily know who so and so is or what that will mean, but it's nice to find those like ways to link up. It's something Chris and I talk about, you know, the diegetic world and like the narrative structure. You want like the kind of plot with like some kind of mechanic that a GM can easily, you know, grok, they can easily institute at the table. So Grindcore is, you're imagining a system that could be used for a lot of kinds of games. The first one that's getting published is this game where you go back in time and fight time traveling Nazis with Vikings.
Or you don't go back. You don't
time travel. Yes.
Oh no,
right.
you are the
Yeah,
Vikings.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're fighting
good.
time traveling.
Yeah. You are a
Got it,
Viking
yeah.
fighting time traveling Nazis.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. like, I don't know. The first thing I thought when Weiss showed me No Nazis in Valhalla, I was like, oh, finally something that's separating Nazism from, you know, like Norse mythology or Astartu or whatever, like all that stuff. Because like it's really interesting and it's great, but then the association with the far right is like it ruins it. It makes it so bad.
Well, and if you look like I do with, you know, long hair, a big white mask presenting person,
Sure.
I luckily don't have any tattoos, but I also wear like a battle vest. People are going to think that you're already in that direction of alt-right or straight up fascism. And so I like to be as vocal as I can be about how much I don't like that. But yeah, it's also, it came about, sorry to go off on a little tangent here, but it came about from I went to a witch fest here in Austin, Texas, which was like a little convention for pagans and other things. I'm not particularly pagan myself, but I definitely don't subscribe to any one religion. But I bought a shirt that said "No Nazis in Valhalla" by this wonderful artist named Fendi Witch. She screen printed these really cool shirts, and I was like, "Hey, this is a really good tagline. Can I use it for something later?" And this was, I think, like 3 years ago. And she continually said yes. I always like message her every couple of months being like, hey, I'm still going to do this probably. Are you still good? Now I am trapped and have to do it, so it'll get done. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, how can I turn this into something that's a little bit more interesting than Viking-esque things killing Nazis? And I was like, well, if the Nazis went back and the Vikings didn't like that and you got to play the Vikings that killed Nazis, that'd be pretty cool. The main... Oh, I'm sorry. I totally lost my train of thought.
That's totally fine.
That's all good. Yeah. I mean, so why don't you tell us? So, I mean, the idea is really cool. But one of the things that I've done recently in terms of jamming games that I'm not making is run Eat the Reich by Rowan Rickendeckard, which is another game where you just fight Nazis, and that's the whole game, which is fun. One of the limitations I found is that not only is it like about combat, but like there's really nothing you can do mechanically that isn't killing a Nazi, which is cool, but it also really limits like how much time you can spend with any sort of meaningful role playing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear sort of how the time traveling bit works in practice, and how much is this about sort of simulating Norse culture versus kind of that experience, which is totally fine if that's where you went, where it's like, no, it's just combat, like we're just chopping dudes' heads off. Like maybe introduce a little bit of some of the things you could do in the game after the bad guys arrive. You're a Viking.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens next? Like, what kinds of stories did you imagine?
So combat is definitely like probably front and center. I mean, the cover of the book will have a Nazi with an axe in his face. So I think that's pretty clear. But one thing that I did want to include, so in Grindcore, your character building, you get to choose abilities. It's sort of similar to D&D 4th edition in that you like all the classes have like abilities. There's not the fighter who just like swings and attacks every turn and does the same thing. You all have sort of gamified abilities. With No Nazis in Valhalla, I wanted to up that a little bit by also giving you out of combat abilities, essentially, for each of your combat abilities. So like I made a bunch of work for myself, but I think it'll be a much more satisfying experience if you can actually like live in the world. The whole thing takes place during the invasion of England in 865 by the quote unquote Great Heathen Army. And so that was a conflict that spanned almost 2 decades. So I don't imagine it will be only combat. I do imagine it will be fairly military based in terms of stories that you may want to tell. I kind of think of it as like a Viking A-team sort of situation. You send in, 4 elite guys to go blow up something, and then
I mean, love it when a plan works out.
Yeah.
So does Hrothgar.
Yeah.
I'm curious, are there options or maybe this is an expansion in the future, something like that. Are there options to play as like, I don't know, Picts or Britons or as like post-Roman, like there's a whole wealth of like really interesting stories from that time period.
Definitely. It's definitely a possibility. Right now I've made the character building fairly modular, in that, there will be a lot of choices. So I will see if those other fun storylines can commingle. But currently it's just Scandinavian circa 870, 860 AD. It's in my head and how it's coming out currently, it should be fairly historical, but with magic. So who knows what will change when I get to the end of it. But largely it will be Vikings, Norse, Danes, and Swedes. Yeah. And then as well as the English. And I haven't determined whether the English will strictly be oppositional. Yeah. Or what will happen. So that will be interesting.
Well, it's this is something that I've been running into a lot while writing Dance Macabre, which is also historical fantasy thing. Is like I don't know. The notion of England is an idea, and it's not like the English is. It's not a thing. It's a complete construct, right? Like, and so you run into stuff like that when you're trying to do this simulationist thing, where it's like, well, like we have these concepts of nationhood or peoplehood, but like they didn't care about any of that back then,
right?
And so, I don't know. I'm curious about how that kind of comes into play. With there's different tribal groups that are coming over. There's different, kingdoms that are coming over at that time.
Yeah, luckily. For me, I get to like lie a little because the Great Heathen Army has many commanders, and most notably there are supposedly the five sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, who's basically Viking King Arthur if you want to boil it down real fast. But basically, it's an age of barely history and a lot of myth and a lot of fantastical storytelling. And while the English weren't unified when they saw this huge giant army coming. They were like, well, they seem to not like us, so let's all at least agree to fight them off together.
Yeah. I mean, that's around the time that like Mercia fell.
Yep.
Like all of the kingdoms, basically, except for Wessex.
Yep.
Had gone away and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah. So there was unification happening.
Yeah.
Really cool. Interesting.
Yeah. Should be fascinating. And actually, there are a ton of different commanders for the, not to get too into the weeds here, but for the Great Heathen Army, there are several commanders, and that will actually play into character creation.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So basically in Veil Thinners, which is Chris's original setting for Grindcore, it's very OSR traditional in terms of like classes, sort of archetypes. And then they have like a list of skills that you can acquire or that you start with. And in mine, I was like, well, I want things to be a bit more varied. Unfortunately, again, I made a lot of work for myself, but basically each of the 5 commanders of the Great Heathen Army will give you a boon of some sort, an ability. And then you'll get to choose your sort of patron deity, which I've narrowed it down to 6 gods. That's pretty hard. We'll see if I can keep it at 6, but there's a lot of interesting Norse deities.
There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah. And then
can I ask you what the 6 are that you have?
Yeah, so
you mind sharing?
Let me pull up my notes real quick. I think Odin. I picked some like normal ones, some ones that people will understand.
Odin, Freya, Loki.
Yeah, Thor. I think I did Scotty as well, and who did I do? Ioun? I don't remember. Let's see. But yeah, anyway, like they will also have abilities that you will get, but they will have multiple that you can choose from. And basically it'll start getting more granular and more interesting. I want character creation to be quick, but I also want it to be customizable. So
well, and it sounds like there's like a component of your background. So even in a fighting game, like the god you worship says a lot about maybe culturally something about your character. And certainly I love this idea of the faction mattering mechanically. I think that's really interesting. But also, again, it would just tell you a little about your character. For those of us who aren't as up on the history of that particular part of Western Asia as you and Chris P, I think that's also just a great way to really quickly get people up to speed. Like,
for sure.
You're a Dane who worships this god, and here's a sentence about being Danish, here's a sentence about this god or whatever, which is a little different than, like a class per se. So I like those kind of systems where your background does matter more maybe than, again, it's easy to beat up on D&D, but like in D&D, the backgrounds are so generic,
They
don't tell you a lot.
Yeah. Well, and they also don't inform anything really once you get going with your class, and so they just kind of fall into the background. Waka waka. Yeah. So I'm curious, what's it been like adapting Grindcore for this setting for you, Wes and Chris? I'm curious, like if you've had any
that's an excellent
input on that as well.
Question. So Chris, you want to talk about how the feel for Grindcore is in Veil Thinners, and then I can sort of talk about what adjustments I've made.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's an easy way to add some contrast. So Veil Thinners is very much a low fantasy, kind of grimy, dirty, world. There's a little bit of, kind of rustic folk magic, folk horror kind of stuff going on.
Nice.
But the basic premise of it is that the veil is, it's the thing that keeps all of the spookies, the bump in the nights, separate from our world. And there's a mythology around how, the whole world was overrun with, demons and everything for a long time. They're kind of locked, behind this veil now. They pop out every once in a while, you know what I mean? When the veil gets too thin, something happens. If you're lucky, it's off on some random mountain that no one goes to. If you're unlucky, it's in your bedroom, kind of thing. So the kind of premise behind Veil Thinners is you play a character that's been kind of touched, by things from beyond the veil. So you can sense demons around you. There's Berserk vibes if you're into, manga to that for sure. There's Claymore vibes to it, so you there's a little bit of kung fu, kind of wander the earth. You're very shunned by society because they call you a veil thinner, because to replenish your stamina, you basically kind of feed off of the veil, thinning it and making possibly the situation a little bit worse around you. So it's the push-pull mechanic of, to get out of a situation, how much can I keep tapping in to do all the stuff I need to do before maybe every time you do that, you roll on a table, maybe causing a rend where something pops through and things get spicier for you.
So you can really see that threat counter mechanic coming into development through that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So now you thin the veil. Now the threat level ticks up to a new level. Now we're going to roll a d6 plus whatever you're on level 3. Okay, cool. What does that mean? Okay, now you've rended, and d4 minor demons pop out also into the middle of everything else that's going on. Kind of thing.
Crazy.
And then like Wes said, so then the classes then are based on your archetypes of heretics and priests and warriors and these kind of things, and basically if you have a warrior, you have the archetype, I'm gonna go fight stuff, then you pick from there though, am I more of like a martialist, am I more of just a brawler, and when you pick that kind of subclass, it gives you a special ability that's unique to the class and kind of tells you you're going to get this skill for free. And then from there, you get to pick from then a suite of, here's 10 other skills, build your own character, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, so it is very much a like wandering through the mountains into forgotten places, taking a job from a village because all their kids keep getting eaten, kind of thing, lots of exploration, and then, threats that can very much escalate extremely. Because you start off with an amount of hit points and you never get hit points again. Your life is your life. And so it doesn't matter, you're level 9 and you have a crap ton of stamina to blow on a bunch of abilities and everything. It's cool, but you're still 2 or 3 hits away, from the end, basically. So that's kind of the general vibe of the core setting for it.
Yeah. And then like in complete contrast to that, in No Nazis for Valhalla, I wanted it to be sort of a hero power fantasy type of deal, because I don't want people to like struggle to kill Nazis. I don't want them to win. But also, obviously, I got to balance that and fun. And but you do gain more health in No Nazis for Valhalla. The threat mechanic in or the veil thinning in No Nazis is called Valhalla Calling or Valhalla Awaits. I haven't working titles. Anyways, the more you do that and the higher the threat is, the closer you come to your sort of ultimate sacrifice. If you get to threat level 5, which in Veil Thinners generally means something terrible has happened, and it may not be the end of the session, but something significant is going down and it is not good. In No Nazis for Valhalla, a player can sacrifice themselves at that threat level to pretty much neutralize any threat that they see fit. It's obviously going to be completely narrative, because at that point you're so juiced up that it would be hard to quantify. The point of doing that, though, is if you do the self-sacrifice, you will have a higher percentage chance of coming back as an Einhardjar, For those who don't know, that is basically Odin's chosen in his hall, and so No Nazis for Valhalla kind of encourages you to do those sorts of things and to use your stamina as much as possible. I've also made the stamina pools and things higher just so that it doesn't feel cool when you're doing 2 damage in a game that something has like 50 hit points, but it feels real cool to do 2 damage in an OSR game when the goblin only has 1 hit point or something like that, and you're trying to survive. It's just a completely different feel, and that was something that was interesting to think about design wise, was how do I make this feel heroic? And I actually had to, as disenfranchised as I am with 5th edition these days, I had to like think about like, okay, well, what parts of 5th edition make me feel real cool? And I'm like, oh, those parts. the having basically like endless hit points or what have you. There is quite a bit of danger in No Nazis for Valhalla. It is still Grindcore is still a pretty brutal system. If your game master wants to, they can really put the screws to you. Like obviously like in all games, but it facilitates that if that's something that you want, if you want sort of a more adversarial type experience. Yeah, I think the main differences between Veil Thinners and No Nazis in Valhalla is more nuanced character creation because of the size of and scope of all the people coming into the battle, as well as a heightened sense of heroic nature and things like that, so that you can feel cool while you're killing Nazis. So,
I mean, I think that's of great value. I like that there's still a challenge, that it still kind of adheres to the original intent, the tenets of Grindcore system. But still, like, you want to feel heroic when you're killing Nazis. You want to feel like you're going to win.
Yeah.
And frankly, a game that would set you up to fail in that feels really, really bad.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I'll just say quickly, I mean, I think that's a missed opportunity by Grant Howitt and team with Eat the Reich, where they have these cool pre-gens, but you don't make a character. And to me, making a character is part of the heroism. Or like the hero's journey. Whether you're playing in a system where you start off with 1 hit point and you grow epic like in 5e, or you start off with 1 hit point and keep a couple hit points like in the OSR, or where you sort of start off epic and you're playing either a shorter campaign or just that it's sort of that curve doesn't matter as much. But I think being able to narrate your own story and learn like why do the stakes matter for me is part of it. And I think there's a kind of flatness to being told, I don't know, it's just your job, go do it. As opposed to like figuring out like for whatever reason why you're a Veil Thinner, or in this case a Nazi puncher. So I think that's really cool, and definitely Grindcore seems very in keeping with stuff that Chris P, I feel like you and I have been working on in terms of thinking about narrative structure, building big moments at the table, and doing it in ways that are actually fun and simple. So I love this idea, and I've had not heard some of this, so I'm eager to try it out.
I want to play both games.
So this is the first published edition, the print edition of a Grindcore game that is going to be coming out for those who backed. Is there going to be a way for people to pick up No Nazis in Valhalla or Veil Thinners, or is there like a PDF I can go purchase right now?
So, Chris, you said you're working on the SRD, and at some point in the future it will be released. So the SRD is getting worked on right now, as well as a proper book kind of for the home setting. So I don't know. I don't want to promise too much. I am tentatively looking at like an end of summer into fall Kickstarter probably. And SRD would just be a free PDF. You go to itch and it's pay what you want, kind of thing. I very much... I enjoy and respect, the idea behind systems that are just available for anybody to do anything they want with them, so it'll be a Creative Commons, 4.0 kind of situation for that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're working on our SRD right now. It's just taking a long time because we keep doing other things. But finally, with a second game out and a third game on the way, thanks to Chris, we want an SRD that is just generally, all of the things and free and on the website, so it's easy to find. We'll make a PDF. But I really want to get the SRD so I can take a look at what you're putting together. Looking forward to the books. Is there actual play? Is there anything we can listen to in the meantime, or read, some examples of some of the stories you guys have been working on, or is that all kind of in process?
That is all in process.
Yeah, and I ask in part because I'm curious about the process, because stuff we've been doing in terms of going from cool, you have an idea, to you wrote it down, to what do you do with it? Yeah. And so clearly you've gotten people engaged, you've done the marketing of Kickstarter, but there's so much more, it turns out. Yeah. Hence this podcast, right? Of I don't know, we should go find other people who aren't our friends, but who are cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts about the politics of games, which I really want to pick your brain about, but I am just curious to dwell on the sort of process product part for a moment, how that's going. And I don't know if you have any sort of reflections or tips or things do you want playtesters? I mean, where are you at in that stage of development, if that makes sense?
So I think it is entirely dependent on the creator of what they want. I am very weird and very out of the norm in that I would like playtesters when I get to that point, but I'm not there yet. I kind of work best in we've got this deadline to meet and I need to meet it. Otherwise it'll languish in the back folders on my computer and never see the light of day. So that is part of Kickstarter for me. For instance, in case anyone's hearing this and they backed and they're like, oh God, this person has no idea what they're doing. For Beyond Deep, our very first Kickstarter, Chris and I both wrote a good portion of it. I wrote probably a little over half of, especially the meat of the main quest and things like that. Chris did a lot of the monsters and items. He did all the items actually. We did all of that in a 100-page book that probably should have been 150 pages in 7 months. That is delivered in 7 months. So timeline wise, it works best for me to have a bunch of ideas. Right, I've written a bunch of stuff down at this point. It's about organization now and taking what I would like and what I wouldn't like to stick in the game. And then for this one, I'm going to release a playtest because it is a system. And I want a little bit more feedback on if things feel too weak, if things feel too powerful, etc. But I'm also of the opinion that I can always do a second pass. It's a bummer if you bought first edition No Nazis in Valhalla. It's not as good as third edition, but I'm not here to bleed you dry. I just genuinely sometimes don't know what makes it better until it's in my hand and I can physically see the words on the page.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, something that a few people that we've talked to, and something that we're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a college try. Is to do basically just an early release version of the game. So you have a living rule book that you just are kind of constantly chipping away at and adding to. But it seems like a lot of people are kind of moving in that direction, which is interesting.
I think it's a great direction to move in, especially in the age of itch and just online availability of games and things like that. And most people, a lot of people prefer PDFs these days, or at least in terms of getting updated rule sets, they don't want to have to buy it again in print. And so I find that the more I touch it before print, the less I will actually get on the page. But then once it's printed, I tend to find all the things I want to change. It's both sides are terrible, but at least I know which direction I'm going, I suppose.
I mean, that might be the most important part, is that you know what works for you.
Yeah, for sure.
You're doing it, you know.
Yeah, if you have a certain sort of mental kind of state of mind, having an impending sense of doom from incoming deadlines is always a good way to keep yourself motivated to keep creating and getting things done. So
yeah. So is the threat counter also tied to having ADHD? Because I feel like
you're digging too deep now, Chris. You're digging too deep.
I feel like I need a threat counter
in real life. Yeah,
that would be fantastic. I feel like I have a threat counter in my brain.
That's just called having a job and a marriage. It's like, oh no, the threat counter is counting down to I have to earn money this week. Or
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it should just be daily life. That's the threat counter.
Yeah. There's a more philosophical,
daily life under late stage capitalism is the threat counter. Anyway.
Well, speaking of that, so how do you feel about politics in games? Obviously, we're fans, but I think it's something that has come up organically for a number of people. I imagine we can't be the only four on this call. I know we're not. And so I'm just curious, if that's something that you feel like, I foreground that on purpose, or this was more of just a one-off project, and no pressure. But I also imagine, for example, if there have been people who've contacted you who are like crazy right-wing people but who like games and were like, I saw this and I hate it, or have you gotten a lot of love and support from other leftists?
Surprisingly, I haven't gotten any no real like straight up fascists coming at me for No Nazis in Valhalla. I think they're pretty clear on what the message is there. There was this one guy on Reddit who was like, well, it's kind of in vogue to put Nazis on stuff, and I don't understand the correlation between Vikings and Nazis. And I'm like, you don't understand the correlation between...
I mean, come on. That's because you live under a rock.
It's like, it seems pretty disingenuous, man. But there were, and even less so for Beyond Deep. But Beyond Deep is... union-based politics and workers' rights and things like that.
Yeah.
And so you can get almost anybody to get in on that until you start to like break it down, and then they get confused.
Until you start to actually organize.
Yeah. hey, we got.
Yeah. But it's funny when you talk about politics in games, right? Because like I am very much of the idea that like everything is political. Everything has like some level of politics in it. Whether it's just maintaining the status quo or it's, for change. And it's not always blatant, Is it writing an adventure that's, about just a horrific company town and company and unionizing workers and, and all that stuff in a terrible world. And what is there still left to fight for, even if you're in Morkborg and everything is awful all of the time, or something, I laugh. To me, No Nazis in Valhalla is kind of like, Wes's like Nazi punks fuck off, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like kind of thing, it's like, hey, you're in this space that I appreciate, but I don't appreciate you. So, you can kind of go fuck yourselves. Yeah. So when you have a chance to, do something like that, then it's always fun, especially if you can make it a game that, will maybe seep those ideas into people's heads, a little bit too, and give them a different way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's what we're here for. And, I really appreciate that. That's top of mind for y'all. I think tailored, to that, not tailored, that's not really what I meant. Along with that question goes the question of historicity and like, how do you use history in actual Norse culture, and how much do you get into that? Just as you said, the association of kind of, big, scary, pale, bearded guys with sort of right politics, right, is like, is long standing to some degree, but also, okay, so you're going to kind of invert that or play with that. Sounds like you know a lot of the real history. I know this is something, Chris Pickett, you've thought a lot about with your game and kind of actual medieval Europe and like all of the problems then and the problems that came out of that time and space. But yeah, I guess I don't know what exactly the question is, but like, how do you do historical game design right is something that I think we're just like constantly thinking about.
That's the thing that's constantly on my mind is like, oh my God, like I'm not a historian, but I'm trying to be, but also you can't be. And like,
it would be an awful game.
It's a bad game. Exactly. It's a bad game. That's the problem. And so finding that balance is really important. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is an interesting question. But I think, something that Wythe and I have talked about a lot, and I'm curious, Wes, Chris, what you have to say about this too, is, like, I think a lot about the Marx quote where the goal of philosophers to be change the world, yada, yada. So like when we're designing games that have a historical component to it or that are based in history, historicity, however we want to put it, how do we not replicate the hierarchies, the power structures of the past? Like, how do we get across that those things existed and they were shitty, and that we should not be in support of monarchies, and we should not be supporting of, a papacy that spans 3 continents, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. Again, not really a question, but I'm curious how you're approaching that in Nazis.
Yeah, so I'm approaching that in a way that I've seen in a couple of RPGs that I really enjoy. Most recently, Vesson by Free League. That is their Gaslight, basically hunt monsters game. But they specifically, have a good chunk of their first chapter talking about power structures and how while they existed in this fashion, there is no reason that you should want to or that you should do so and make them happen within your game. I wrote a little disclaimer in Beyond Deep of like, hey, this is kind of focused around a time in which racism was real big, bigotry was real big, et cetera, et cetera. If you hold those ideals high, I don't want you to interact with my game. Now, there are going to be some people who are going to say, screw you, I can do whatever I want, yada, yada, yada. I think as long as you are not purporting yourself to be a historian, which I don't think anyone generally is, but unless they are actually a historian, but also are explicitly saying like, this is a game, and it's a role-playing game where choices are going to be made, and they're probably not going to be historically accurate. So I'm sure you could do a historically accurate game. I just don't think it would be very fun or something that I personally would want to engage with. I mean, it goes a lot with like, I'm going to piss off some people, but like Bolt Action, which is a World War II miniature game. People want to play Nazis, and I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be the Nazis? Why do you want
to? Yeah.
Like, why
have the coolest guns?
Why have you spent? Oh, their tanks are cool. Fuck off. Like, why have you spent $500 of your own money to make miniature Nazis that like? It's just so mind-boggling.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
It's just also so it's so transparent to me that it's like, okay, I know who you are. Like,
it's for sure. Well, it's like the people who really, well, there's actually a trouble I have discerning between people who are actually into communism or people who are into the USSR, and so it's, you're like, which one are you? And then you quickly figure out it's the USSR, and that's unfortunate, but
it's quite an aesthetic, really.
Yeah. Although it's kind of the opposite of the play acting as Nazis, because if you're play acting as Soviets, I mean, at least the stated goal, like the idea was to have a better world where people were equal. So I'm not saying that like mistakes weren't made, or we have to get into like
I'm not going to argue
critique
with
of
books,
but I think the history books are pretty clear on that point that the goals were very very different throughout, as opposed to right wing and all the right wing regimes that were popping up at the time, right? So as the Soviet Union's falling, you have America backing these horrible dictatorships and just overturning elected leaders all throughout, for example, Latin America, Africa. Southeast Asia. So it is. I mean, I know what you mean that like, yeah, it's a question of aesthetic, right? And whether we're simulating aesthetic and we're making a game where it will feel like X, or whether it's a more philosophical, like we're making a game where you associate with people differently. And yeah, like why you would want to spend time doing those things. So I think a lot of us with game design, because we maybe grew up with the Dragon game, video games, horror movies, like we spend a lot of time simulating violence. And I think that's something that I thought with the OSR, starting about 10 years ago, that really led me to like want to publish games. Is like, why, if I'm going to do something, I'm not a very violent person in my day-to-day life. I don't walk down the streets of New York like karate chopping people. So why am I spending all this time thinking about like how I would do it compared to another guy? Like, all right, he probably is a little better than me. He gets a +1, and it's like, I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous. So, I mean, that's what led to like the idea of political games. Is like, well, there probably should be some reason why all these people are fighting, and not just like the classic Conan the Barbarian, Picaro, I run around and I steal stuff and one day I'll be king, gaining levels. It's like not a good reason to like karate chop random goblins, whatever you're doing. So yeah, I do think that's an important difference though, to mark out the aesthetics. Like, do you want to look like something, or do you want to act a certain way because of a situation? And I do like, and this is again totally different, although similar in that it's a real small slice of the world, but several clicks north. So Chris Pickett's working on this game where it's in the Mediterranean basin. So from France over to Turkey, and it's about people who are dealing with a sort of a zombie apocalypse situation, and that's why they're out there essentially fighting demons. In your situation, totally different, right? Time traveling Nazis, and oh, by the way, there's Vikings, British, Picts, whatever, Welsh. But I think still there's like a clear reason why like the world would seem unsettled and you might have to pick up an axe and like make hard choices. And I think even just that baseline narrative structure to me is more interesting in this day and age. So so kudos for that.
Yeah,
but,
definitely. And like a quick aside, the primary reason, if you need a reason to take an axe to a Nazi and you're picking up my game, they're coming back in time to rule the world. Like they're there to take over.
They're not doing it for like friendship and hobbies and shit. Like,
no.
Turns out they have ulterior motives.
Yeah, they were hoping.
Touche. Yeah,
they were hoping for this big army of people, of like-minded people, and it turns out that they have no concept of that sort of thing.
Which is really funny because especially like if you look at the history of Nazism and the way in which they used Astartu and Germanic, proto-Germanic religions and stuff like that, they were just making shit up whole cloth. Like they just made up stuff and assumed it was true and then said this is history. And then for them to go back in time and be like, we were completely wrong. They're murdering us. It's so good.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be funny for someone to wave a black sun flag or something like that, and it just gets set on fire or something, something to that effect.
It's like the scene in Prometheus when the rich guy finally meets alien engineers, and they just like immediately, like, spoiler if you haven't seen the movie, it's like 10 years old, they just like rip his head off or whatever, because they're like, I'm a god, you're a human, you're a failed experiment, right? Speaking to the kind of the mythopoesy of these sort of speculative genre scenarios. So I like what you have going on, Wes. We want to play the game. I want to learn more about the situation, because I do. Both Chris and I read a lot of history, but different kinds of history, and I just literally don't know what you're talking about when you're talking about the sons of Ralfgar, whomever. I don't know. I believe you, man. I'm going to Wikipedia it right now.
Ragnar Lothbrok.
Okay. Ragnar.
It means fuzzy breeches.
Fuzzy breeches.
All fuzzy breeches.
Yeah, Ragnar Fuzzy Breeches.
You could be fucking with me.
You
could just be making
this is real. Well, but also, this is the funny thing. It might be mythology. Like, the thing around, like, a lot of, like, Norse history is, like, it was written down so many years later by Christian monks and scholars who had their own like we don't really know that much concretely. There's a lot of material evidence and things like that, of course, but like like day-to-day life kind of stuff, it's like I don't know really what these people believed. So it does leave space open for fantasy and for kind of like imagining a better space out of it, which is nice.
Or imagining, different associations and these what ifs of like, time travelers show up. And so how would have that shaken up their little hamlet of 50 families that were fishing and had some goats and whatever.
That's actually really funny too. Like, if a Nazi shows up with a submachine gun in 983. Like,
Oh,
how does
yeah.
the history of technology morph around that? Like, you know, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. I think that might be like Dark
That's a
season
supplement.
4 or something. Yeah, that's going to be a show.
Dark season 4.
incredible.
So I think, so obviously we made a strong pitch to check out the game. If you want, when you are ready or looking for some sort of press outlet, we'd be happy to, play test it or do something like that. So no press, but, and same Chris, when you're working on, this whole idea of, the Picaros are accidentally rending the veil, which I think is brilliant and should kind of be in every game.
I want to rend some veils for sure.
Yeah. So what is next? I mean, do you have other projects, or is this all consuming? I imagine it probably is. Maybe it's a stupid question, but sometimes people are like, I really want to talk about this other idea I had, Tuesday.
We always have more ideas.
Yeah.
Chris is probably going to get wrangled into an idea called the Faraday cage that him and Josh came up with, which is sort of a love letter to Green Room, right? Right, Chris?
Yeah.
Cool.
So the Faraday should be the end of this year. It's a cyborg-based adventure. Yeah, like Wes said, it's kind of, it started off as kind of, Green Room is one of my favorite movies, of all time for a lot of reasons. People kind of look at me odd, but it hits kind of like my roots in music and the indie filmmaking scene, and
it's also pointedly
the threat of Nazism in that scene, and you know what I mean.
It's like pointedly about killing Nazis as well. So
yeah,
it's like,
it's great. And so we took that idea, stuck it into Cyborg, which is kind of around these like pure boy, like I don't taint my body, ableist, in this club, right? You end up in the club in a situation where everything kind of goes sideways, and now you've got to fight your way back out of it. And then there's multiple other layers kind of going on, on top of that. But that's kind of, the basic idea.
That's
there.
dope. Wait, so is the club the Faraday cage? Is that the name of the club?
It's called the Faraday because the club is built to be a Faraday cage. So when you go in, you're completely cut off from the net.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Great.
So then it's like, so part of what they're doing is, right, they run black rooms on the upper levels for VIPs and stuff, so that like there is no record because you're completely cut off from the outside of what's going on there. It is a club that runs music and things, and then there's a cult in the bottom, and there's a bunch of stuff going on.
That's sick.
But yeah, that's why it's called the Faraday.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love that.
Let's play it.
Yeah, let's definitely.
Yeah. I mean, there's always things in the tank, because that's going on. Grindcore is going on. We mentioned our friend Josh, him and Brian and tangentially me. Working on a game called 1886, which is, a kind of set more historically, kind of Wild West cowboy age game, late 1880s, more in the mythos of what you want it to be, but a little more historically set. And it's funny because we talked about, when you deal with historical settings, we already have, that setting of like, hey, this time was terrible for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was bad.
Don't use this game to be terrible to people. Use this game, to make people feel included and have a good rootin' tootin' time. And so it's based off of playing blackjack for resolutions, kind of thing, the time with the theme. So that'll be probably early 2025 is what we're hoping. So
very cool.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about internally, at least, is like never doing a Western setting with big quotation marks for that reason. Although I like the idea of, I know some people have tried to sort of think about certain inversions or constraints that would make the experience somehow less pioneery, i.e. less settler colonial. And I think that is obviously, I think Westworld, which is great. I remember the old Westworld, Yul Brynner.
When I was a kid, man, that was my favorite movie.
It was mind blowing, and then they remade it. It was kind of great. But I remember that and thinking, like I guess we're never going to lose that now as a genre because it's been so. It's like in geology you can see rock strata or something, like there's just this sediment of Western crap in the United States that even if like we had the socialist revolution tomorrow, people would still have those like images in their heads. So I guess as like people who, you know, who work with culture, as like cultural artificers, like we have all these cowboy hats lying around. It's like, all right, I got to put a cowboy hat on somebody. All right, it can be on an orc, it can be on an anarchist. So it's like an interesting problem, you know.
Look, you know, as a Marxist from Texas, I've worn cowboy boots and hats before.
Yeah.
Like I'll do.
I
it.
love the gear.
Yeah, you gotta love this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only we could divorce it from its horrible history.
Yeah.
Maybe through games we can approach a dialogue.
Sure. So it is 8:00. So time check. Do y'all want to keep chatting? Do y'all have some other stuff you want to plug? I just wanted to you know, let you guys go if you have had a long day. We really appreciate you making time, and we're happy to have you back.
I think I've said all that I need to say. Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I'm always down to chat, but yeah, I don't have, you know, anything else, you know, to pitch or, you know what I mean, whatever in that kind of aspect. So
I think we've gotten quite a lot out. It's pretty, we've hit our pitch quota.
I think
I'm just kidding.
we also like the idea of just wrangling all the leftist game folks on the internet. So we'll have to have you back whenever it would benefit you, or you know, you just have something interesting you really want to get out there, and hopefully we can kind of get more and more networking, you know, collaboration, because I feel like there are these little networks. It sounds like you. I mean, that would be maybe my last question is just how did you guys get into this as a group, especially like as individuals, but also as Spooky Bell Games, because I feel like we're seeing this where we are in other places where people are saying, you know, it's maybe not possible for all of us to make full-on livings just doing TTRPGs, but it's better working together in a lot of ways. And I think that allows for sharing a lot of ideas and is a little closer to that ideal of like actually organizing instead of just talking about on Twitter. So not that games are going to save the world, but it's just this step toward like a better day-to-day existence for many of us. So yeah, I don't know, as final thoughts, if Chris or Wes, y'all have thoughts on kind of y'all's experience, basically.
I got some lore I'll drop, but Chris and I have known each other for quite a while now. You know, over 5 years, 6 or 7 probably. But we met at a local game store called Nightwatch Games, which is excellent. And I pretty much have lost all ability to put up with bullshit in my gaming groups. So it was nice that Chris didn't bring any bullshit to the table. And I don't mean that in we leave politics on the side. I mean, don't be a terrible person and I'll game with you. Yeah. And then, so our first interaction, what, Chris, we played some like one page RPGs.
Yeah, I think we were playing, I was deep in the indie hole of role-playing games, you know. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so we played, you know, Gamma World and D&D and Cyberpunk 2020 and Star Wars D6 and all that stuff, you know. Then find my way back into gaming, you know what I mean, kind of later in life in my 30s. And so, yeah, it was just, you know, hanging out. Wes was really cool. There's a few other people kind of, you know, circling in these same groups. We started pulling people together and we were running, you know, Trash Can and just, you know what I mean? Any kind of stuff that was like kind of pretty neat and fun, trying to broaden our horizons in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then then you invited me to the Sprawl game, which, radicalized me. But yeah, no, I was like, okay, these guys are cool. And then I don't know if you guys heard about the year 2020, but some stuff happened that you may have heard about. Or
can you give us a quick recap?
Yeah. Terrible plague, terrible election, you know, but just sort of all around bad. But I turned 30 at the height of the lockdown during the pandemic, and that was kind of a harrowing experience. So you know how I said I was like, I've lost a lot of my ability to put up with bullshit. That completely went away as I forgot how to mask any of my autistic behaviors, and am now just like will walk away from people who I don't find particularly nice to talk to or have anything interesting to say. And I don't mean that in like a rude way. If you're a polite person, I will sit there and listen to you talk. But if you start bringing up literally anything I don't want to talk about, and you're not going to listen to me or my opinions on it, I will simply leave. And so it put also a big perspective on, hey, I've always wanted to do something like put out a game or put out a module or whatever. And I've never done it. And then there was the whole kerfuffle of Zine Quest, Zine Month in 2020. And then in 2021, they did it in August instead of February.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I got a little bit over my head and I was like, hey, Chris, you want to do this? and he foolishly said yes. But yeah.
Played him like a fiddle.
Yeah.
Just
Help.
got suckered right in. But yeah, I mean, it was a chance, right, to like create. I had done a little kind of 10-page minimalist system on itch in 2020 for Zemo, and I've been playing games forever. And I have to be making something all the time. Like I started playing in a band when I was like 16 or 17 years old, you know what I mean, in my hometown. And then that turned into another band and 10, 12 years of my life, you know what I mean? And I was constantly writing, running games. And so for a while, it was like running games and DMing and writing campaigns kind of helped, you know what I mean? Like assuage that creative need, especially when I was in a very corporate management job that was just eating my soul, and so finally, I went like, man, people just put stuff out. Like, I kind of got back to like that DIY, idea, of listening to punk rock as a kid and, you know what I mean? And the hardcore scene and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm just gonna like make something. So I did a little digital game, and then the Wes was like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, fuck yeah. Like the idea is great. Like politically we're there, but it's also interesting and it's fun and we like the system, you know what I mean? It all came together. And then, I worked with Josh also. We're putting stuff out with Speak Bill Games. He was in that same Sprawl game, you know what I mean, that Wes brought up, you know what I mean, that kind of like
indoctrinated,
solidified a lot, so then it's just like you start seeing like, hey, there's all these people. If I can make stuff with my friends, and people that are like-minded and just put it out, like, why would I not at this point in time? I don't have to, like, I just need to make enough money to where like I'm not eating it, and maybe to, buy a few books during Zine Month, can I come out in the green, can I make enough money so when I buy everybody else's stuff, I'm still okay,
Well,
that's the dream.
That's the dream. Well, we're also on the dream of trying to do it as a job, but it is currently at the level of just breaking even and being like, woo, wow, we didn't lose money again. Let's throw some more, whatever they call balls in roulette, probably boules, because that's the word in French. It's funny. It's eerily similar, all these stories. And I love the Sprawl. I think of the Sprawl as similar to Stillfleet, which is my main, baby. But yeah, I think in a way the return of cyberpunk and the sort of end of biopunk and the kind of conflicted, like ever nascent state of solarpunk, I think are all, reflections of just the dystopia in which we live, which is still kind of more cyber, definitely more corporate. So there's the glimmer of the DIY, but the kinds of DIY that I think my friends and I, all similar to what you're saying, are doing are more kind of medial and I think more and more people are focused on kind of actually producing energy, growing food, etc. But even though that's something I like in my day world, spend a lot of time thinking about, at the end of the day, it's like, I also just want to kind of write games and play games with my friends. So I definitely think there's like a generational kind of like, how do we make sense of being in the global north in this era of kind of, the Titanic is like headed and we're all looking, like a bunch of us are at the front of the boat, like, hey guys, there's this big thing we're headed toward. Does anyone want to do anything? Nobody wants to do anything.
We're already grinding it.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on down there?
Well, I mean, all I gotta say is, I think it's you guys should have the last word, but I really think it's a nice note to end on, to hear your story and to hear that y'all are succeeding in that. So you're publishing cool stuff, you're connecting with cool people, and yeah, we all hope that obviously the general play of RPGs kind of gets elevated. There's less shitbaggery and just more fun stories. So appreciate what you're doing, and we'd love to have you back on. So, any last remarks, Wes or Chris?
Put more punk in your X-punk games.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Don't call it solar punk if you're not going to put any punk in it.
Yeah, and I don't mean aesthetically.
No.
Like we talked about, but I mean ideologically.
Yeah.
Or don't call it that. That'd be cool.
Yeah. That's my old man rant, I guess, that goes on.
We're gonna have a whole academic kind of conference, but just invite game designers about what the hell each of the punks is.
But, well, so I
have a lot of thoughts.
I had a spicy question for y'all, but maybe I'll ask it now. We'll save it till next time.
Okay.
Oh,
that's
well, now you have to come back. You don't even know what the question
you have
is.
to come back, but I'm going to ask Wes or Chris, can either of you succinctly define the NSR and why it's important? Think about it. Just think about it.
Wait till next time.
Yeah.
I have some answers, but I'll let it cook.
No pressure, but literally you have to prepare an hour-long speech. It's like a State of the Union for indie games.
Talk time, baby.
Yeah.
Well, Wes Ascolese, Chris Koger, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate what Spooky Bell Games is up to. Everyone should check out No Nazis in Valhalla, and and Chris, all of the games that you're putting out later in the year /2025. So please just hit us up anytime you guys want to talk more about games. That's what we like doing for funs. Have a good night, everybody. This is Why We Roll.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll. Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on Twitch and what used to be Twitter at Why We Roll, and on Instagram at whyweroll.pod.
You can find out more about Dance Macabre at timespaceplace.itch.io/dance-macabre.
You can find out more about Stillfleet at stillfleet.com. Thanks for listening.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons & Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.